Hello students, this is Professor Del Russo and I'd like to comment on your midterm examination. You guys did a good job and I'd like to congratulate Allison Hendricks for achieving the highest grade in the class on the midterm examination. Right behind Allison was Clifton, Keith, and Talia. Having said that, I mark your examinations on the curve. So what I do is, Allison achieved a 21-point score. The highest score that anyone could have achieved was 25 points. So what I do is I add 4 points to Allison's score. She gets a perfect 25. And everyone else gets an additional 4 points added to their grade, and that's how we make sure that your examination score is fair and takes into account any areas that I may not have emphasized well enough. Now, before I close out this message, I'd like to go over some areas where one or two students had some difficulty responding to the exam questions. There was a question about a child misunderstanding the word jury and thinking that it meant jewelry. We call those auditory discrimination errors. Some of you said homonym, but a homonym error is an error where the words are pronounced precisely the same, and the confusion arises from the children understanding which version of the word the speaker actually means. For example, bow and arrow and a red bow in your hair. Two words pronounced the same and in fact spelled the same. Another example would be the word reed. Reed could mean reading a book or a slim piece of vegetation, a reed. There they'd be spelled differently but pronounced precisely the same, reed and reed. An auditory discrimination error is when the words are spelled differently and pronounced differently, and the child hears the grown-up's word and they approximate the answer based upon their own life's experience. Examples might be coughing and coffin. Or there was a perspective cartoon from the family circus where the child says, "Mine is an ice cream clone," C-L-O-N-E, rather than cone. Clone and cone are spelled differently and pronounced differently. When the child thinks clone means cone, that's an auditory discrimination error. And similarly, jury meaning jewelry to the child is another auditory discrimination error. The Sam Stone experiment was about the concept of stereotype induction or stereotyping. Remember, the teacher described Sam Stone as a clumsy or oafish person many times before Sam Stone ever appeared in their classroom. They were stereotyping, that is, the teachers were stereotyping Sam Stone, and when the children were questioned about who soiled the teddy bear or who ripped the book, they guessed that it was Sam Stone. And the research teaches us that when you prime children enough, when you stereotype someone, kids are more likely to answer the questions in a way that's consistent with the stereotyping. And in the world of child maltreatment, if you call stepdad a bad guy or someone who belongs in jail or someone who hurts children, if that's how the children are primed before the questioning begins, the children are more likely to answer in ways that are consistent with stepdad being bad or someone who does something wrong. Another question was about the research from Stephen Ceci and others that focused on children's vulnerabilities and their potential to be influenced by investigative questioning and investigative behavior. The thing about Professor Ceci's work was that it was focused on preschoolers and first graders, not older kids, and not persons who were related to the child. That's one of the problems with that kind of research. That is, if it teaches us anything, it teaches us about preschoolers and first graders' vulnerabilities. And their vulnerabilities with regard to persons who they have no loyalty to or no affinity for. Someone they don't really care about. No one cares about Sam Stone. And in the mousetrap study, no one got in trouble from the disclosure that they got their finger caught in a mousetrap. And that's one way to distinguish the utility or the usefulness of Cece's work. That is, that it focused on preschoolers and persons who were not related to the child. A couple of other questions. 5 and 6-year-olds cannot provide highly detailed narratives. That in part is why we have this discipline known as forensic interviewing. And there was another question about children at about age 4 and their ability to discern someone's motivations, or the ability, more specifically, to answer why questions. 4-year-olds can barely articulate their own motivations, much less a third party's motivations about conduct or behavior. And a why question calls upon the child to speculate about a third person's motivations, which they are unable to do at such a young age. The question was, if you recall, by age 4, children can provide a meaningful explanation of why a person acted in a certain way. And the answer would be false. At 4 years old, they're unable to tell us why a person acted in a certain way. So those are just some examples of questions that gave a few students a little bit of trouble. In any event, good luck with the rest of the course. You're all doing very well, and I am impressed by your preparation and your command of the subject matter. Keep up the good work, and as always, if you have any questions, please post to the Cyber Cafe.